when the president and the administration decided to send the Gerald R. Ford to the Caribbean from the Middle East, then that left kind of a gaping hole in the hardware that was available to defend that area. And the Abraham Lincoln was dispatched from the east to plug that gap, to solve that deficiency. And the Lincoln arrived with its battle group, in the Gulf of Arabia about a week ago, plus or minus, maybe a little bit less. And before I came on just a few minutes ago, I was I was on the phone for an hour, and I just checked in to look at news headlines before I jumped on. And it seems that the Iranians have decided to test the resolve of the American fleet, American presence, and somewhere in the Straits of Hormuz, or in that general area, the Iranians sent a drone. Not clear yet whether they sent it to strike the Abraham Lincoln. Hasn't been through enough, or whether they were just kind of probing to see what the responses would be. It certainly makes sense to sacrifice even a sophisticated drone is a few $1,000s, in some cases. They can be that that cheap, just to sort of see what you can learn. You can, just like you want to know if there are bees in the bee's nest. Yeah, go ahead, throw something at it, but perhaps you don't want to get too close when you are doing that. I did When I was a child. I did something equally dumb, which was with a bow and arrow, put it through a bee's nest at what I thought was a safe distance. And in fact, it turned out that it was not a safe distance. But you know what? You learn a valuable lesson. Painful lessons are sometimes are more valuable than what you might read in a textbook. So we are in the Gulf because of Iran, and we are in the Gulf because we have an obligation to help our friends. And there's Israel, there is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, and generally whatever we're up to, 30% of the world's oil passes through Hormuz. And so if Iran had cared to cause fluctuations in the oil market, they could, in the words of Pete Hegseth, FAFO, with the oil tankers, and cause. You don't have to strike them, but they can create uncertainty, and uncertainty means the oil markets get in a tizzy, and the prices spike. Now, Donald Trump's friends, meaning his campaign, the people that give him the most money, besides the tech bros, are big oil. And that's again, that's a phrase. Big oil is a phrase that you may think is from the 50s or before, and you're right. There was a period of time in the Trump interregnum when Biden was trying to do more green energy, and these oil companies rebranded themselves, if only temporarily, as energy companies. Even the most brazen, those willing to use the most brazen bullshit, branded themselves as green energy companies, but they're corporations. They play to the audience, and just like you know, I'm not excusing anything that the tech bros are doing now by failing to stand up for obvious uh, violations of the Constitution in ways we've never seen before. They're the silence, an overused phrase perhaps is silence is complicity, but the reason that you hear it a lot is because it's true. Just because something is trite, overused, bordering on cliche, does not mean that it's not correct. Right? If if silly guys like the guy you're looking at uses it, maybe it's just because it's out there in the zeitgeist. It's being repeated in every form of social media. Yeah. So we have this little. My entire reason for visiting today was, love of. I love boats, particularly sailboats. Grew up on or near the ocean, and even used to race these certain things against other people. Talk about something that falls into the category squarely of white man's problems. I was I was taking the piss out of Larry Ellison a couple weeks ago. Larry Ellison, the only thing I'm I am disliking Larry Ellison and his and David, his son, more and more every day as excuse me, TikTok. Easy to easy to bunch Twitter and TikTok into the same bundle because they are two of the companies that are going to assist DJT and the Republican Party to influence the election in a way that does not advantage democracy or democratic values. Right, and it's already beginning with TikTok. And we know X, Twitter, is Elon, your boy, and we know what we're going to get from Elon. He's going to be in lockstep with Trump until he's not. But obviously, we've learned from the disclosures and the Epstein files that at least they had common interests. They had things to talk about when they were having a Big Mac or whatever they eat when they get together. Boats. So we have this. We still have the Gerald R. Ford carrier battle group in the Caribbean at now approaching the 2 billion mark for that deployment, unless there were any undisclosed profound problems with any of these expensive toys. But generally speaking, just the time elapsed and the ticker at 60, whatever they're at now, $67 million a week, whatever it is, it adds up pretty darn quickly, and they've been there for a long time. And even for those of you that say that Nicolas Maduro is a bad guy, which he is, and he deserved to face justice, which, talk about a term that was sort of not such a nebulous concept 2 years ago as it is today. What is justice in a world where Donald Trump is running the most corrupt administration in U.S. history and socking away as much money as he can for himself and his family. But okay. So we're down there, and Nicolas Maduro is in a jail. Is there a game plan? When you think about the former president of Honduras, and the fact that he was sentenced to 40 years for much, for he was guilty of ensuring that much more cocaine got to the US than anything Nicolas Maduro ever did, even though he was hand in hand with working with Colombian cartels uh, a never defending Nicolas Maduro or his wife, who I don't know or know too much about the extent of her involvement in the actual enterprise of drug smuggling. Um, and so what the U.S. did was, they quote unquote decapitated the regime by grabbing Maduro and his wife to with only 200 casualties or so on the ground in Venezuela, as we talked about recently, maybe half and half Cuban and Venezuelans, and reportedly no deaths in any American servicemen. If there was any loss of life in, say, the ranks of the CIA or some of the other special forces units that are not talked about with as much glee as the SEALs or the Green Berets, then we won't know about it for a little while. I mean, we can't even get. It takes us how long to get the names of two Trump paramilitary officers in Minneapolis that shot down a nurse. It's they transparency is not their calling card. That's a very fair way to put it. They're not playing by any rules except what makes them happy. The Epstein, the disclosures, the information in the files just keeps coming out. We'll do an entire catch up episode on that. I was and also doing a year two Trump administration catch up of all the things in the tremendous flow of disinformation, the things that kind of go unmentioned and unnoticed. And I'll do that one day later this week, one Epstein episode. But uh, the boats. It's important because this is your tax money. These are your tax dollars, and it's a lot of them. It's an expensive enterprise, and a navy is an indispensable part of any uh, Department of Defense. Where even the some of the French submarines that they just brought out a series of new series of four submarines, and because of cost overruns, which always happens with these big projects in seafaring vessels, that they're going to almost equal the amount that we spent on our most uh, current submarines. In the neighborhood. When you can start rounding things up and down, and the Ford, excuse me, the Gerald R. Ford carrier itself, the Gerald R. Ford carrier battle group, right, is in the Caribbean, as we said. And that is also it's also a class. So as you probably know, in the Navy, ships, including submarines, are classified. And if you watch, Tom Clancy movies when you were a younger person, there was what was the one? The Hunt for Red October, right? Which was Jack Ryan and that whole Alec Baldwin and Sir Sean Connery. And it was actually that was a good movie. It was a good, I don't like, gender stereotype entertainment, but for younger, I was not a child when that came out, but I was obviously a much younger person. And I'm going to guess that that was, I was going to guess that that's 50 years ago. Maybe. It was a good fun, and it was, the Cold War, Russians bad, America good, red, white, and blue, rah rah. Jack Ryan dropped onto the L.A. class, Los Angeles class submarine in the middle of the ocean, and Captain Ramius, which was uh, the Russian captain of their submarine, which I'm going to not quite yet remember the name of the Russian submarine, but oh, excuse me, that was the Red October, right? Yeah, toy. Yeah, good job. No teleprompter for that one, right? That was just old age coming at you really fast. So that was delightful. But those boats, while it makes for great theater and Tom Clancy books, which at for the time, I mean, I of course I read all of them. I read so many books when I could read that I can't even remember them all. That's why I have 500 titles in various ebook collections. Not doing that Bezos stuff anymore. Yeah, I love to read. That was what I did when I was coming up. And my friend, a good friend of mine, who in fact turned me on to either Frederick Forsyth first, or I'm trying to remember my gateway drugs to the whole espionage game. Of course, the ultimate master, which I came to just a little bit later than that, is John le Carré. And that's how my youth, starting in as a teen, teenager just, that's the John le Carré series. The that one was called well, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Honorable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People. That the Carla trilogy, which is probably the best trilogy of espionage, British espionage of the Cold War era. That's I could rewatch, re-listen to any of those. Well, no, well, excuse me. The one down the middle, the Honorable Schoolboy, okay. It was fun. I mean, well written, wonderful. The language, the control that he has of the English language. But when you read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, you know within a chapter that you are in the hands of an absolute master of the craft. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to demean the outstanding work that John le Carré, his real name was David Cornwall, but that was his pen name, John le Carré. I won't say for a spy novel, because that ain't what it's about. It's about the language, and it's about storytelling. And I will argue, and as I've said before, and maybe in this feed, I will fight that fight with anybody. You want to tell me that I'll say John le Carré's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is one of the 14th 14 best works of fiction out there. That's a little bit aggressive, but I want to make it. I want to make it controversial. So there, it's the best book ever. No, it's not the best book ever, but in its genre, forget about it. There's people. He's the master, and people are trying to reach him. Um, Well, I'm on recommendations. One other trilogy, which are, they're great because you know what your next read is going to be, and there's plenty of material. And if you don't sleep, like some of us, it's it's delightful. One other is the Bernie Sampson series by Len Dayton, and he wrote three conjoined trilogies, 9 books, dude. That's some work. I wrote one book 15 years ago, and it was not great, and it was hard. But it's maybe I'll throw it in the feed for laughs, just to see what a what the effects of some of the world's most magnificent rum while I was living in Venezuela, what that turns into as far as fuel for imagination, right? So, I mean, I remember one of the mentions in my book was I was still talking about A-Rod on the A-Rod on the Yankees or something. So it was a little bit ago. So how did I get on all that? Tangent, Central, but those two trilogies, one by Le Carre, one by Len Dayton, outstanding. Middle book by Le Carre in that trilogy, a little bit weak, but there are some other. If you ever want British spy thriller espionage genre fiction, I'm your boy. I've read, I mean, Graham Greene, Fred Forsyth, I mentioned. Um, the one that I'm having a major mental block on the ones that were made into movies in Robert Ludlum. Robert Ludlum. Those were the Matt Damon movies, right? Uh, which fine. Books were good. They were okay. They were a little bit formulaic, right? But a well-written formulaic book translates into a movie a script rather nicely. With AI now, don't even get me started. So I'm going to get back out on the water now. The U.S. has one operational Gerald R. Ford class nuclear aircraft carrier, and it is not coincidentally called the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. That is the one we just spoke about and we've been talking about, and it's been hanging out off of the well, it's in the Caribbean. It took a little uh, trip over and hung out in Puerto Rico. Maybe Donald Trump was trying to find Bad Bunny, but he was unsuccessful. Obviously, if you listen to the Grammys, Bad Bunny could be the next president of the universe, and that would be just delightful. But God bless him and his family, and we'll look forward to seeing him on Sunday Super Bowl. Patriots, yeah, not a Patriots hat. I know that because it's in good shape. It's Red Sox, but yeah. So that will be the Bad Bunny show plus football. So we're going to end up having four of the Ford class nuclear aircraft carriers. And these are the biggest aircraft carriers ever built. And they're complex, and I guess the list was 18 billion. It was more, but that's what they're telling the American public. And that one is, that's the only one of that class that is currently available for in service, right? There, the second one, which is the John F. Kennedy, has been doing trials, and it's out there and going through being put through its paces and notes taken and tweaks made and all the systems tested and retested, but it's not going to be available to deploy fully for I don't believe what they say because it's coming out of Pete Hegseth's. It's still a little cold. It's nicer today. Obviously, I don't have my stocking cap on, so it's a little bit warmer. But it's so I think it's 27 degrees Fahrenheit. But it's late afternoon, beautiful low winter sun, just a little bit over the horizon, and yeah. So Hegseth, there will be three more that we know of. And these things, they can expand the program, they can cancel um, ships, but we're going to have four of these massive nuclear powered aircraft carriers, and that's no, I guess we have 11 aircraft carriers, and depending on who you're talking to, there are alternatively five or six or seven that are available for service, but to what degree? The thing about the Gerald R. Ford is that it's overdue for maintenance. So the decision to send it to the Caribbean is it costs in other ways, in downstream readiness, because when you get off schedule, you don't it isn't just the boat, it's the dry dock. So this massive boat, there are we have very sophisticated dry dock facilities in uh, well, on the West Coast. There's the Puget Sound, right? So that's a big facility that can accommodate large craft, but not a boat this big. In the current, they're saying they're going to upgrade it, but isn't that what they always say? There's also one out in Honolulu, right? So there is. I was on that base. Yeah, I was on that base in the '70s. Yeah, not as a enlisted, but as a tourist. And I've been back to the islands a whole bunch, but I've never chose to go back uh, on the base. Yeah. So four of these boats in total. One that's working now. The second is out running through its paces. The third one is going to be Enterprise, the Enterprise, which we can all, Mr. Spock. That one will be, if they're promising it in 2030, right? And we just turned into 26. Then if they're promising it, I'm saying that's 2032 at the earliest, because they're dirty, rotten liars and scoundrels. And then the fourth one, which has kind of another Trump era story attached to it, that brings in Donald Trump's favorite subject, DEI, and we're in Black History Month, right? So all of the disgraceful, embarrassing, repulsive things that the Trump administration, and particularly in the Department of Defense, firing senior leaders for as I say, the temerity of being born black, right? How could they? How could they do such things? Excuse me, I mean being black. Yeah. So I'm trying to be cheeky about a subject that is absolutely reprehensible. It's a stain on our country. It's a stain on the military. It it works contrary to military readiness. It's bad on every level except for the racists because they're sad. They're sad that people are promoted based on their performance. And if that happens, then there must have been there must have been a cracker available that we could have just stuck in there. Yeah. So there are, a lot of really bad examples of people of color and women who were forced out of the military from very senior positions that they fought for, you know, some of them fought for 30 years for that position. And there, you deal with a lot of freaking bullshit, you know? Imagine as a woman of color, as a man of color coming up in the military, there is still a fair amount of racism across across our society, but in the military as well. Is it better than it was? Yes, right. But by degrees, not of course where it should be. So yeah, so we've got Jerry Ford, we've got JFK, we have the third one, which I said is Starship Enterprise, and then the fourth one, which is the Miller, right? And the first name of uh, the sailor the ship is being named after, his nickname was Rose Rosie. I'm gonna mess it up. He is Mr. Miller was in Pearl Harbor on a fateful day during the Second World War, and his boat was attacked, and he survived and was subsequently and perhaps posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. And he went on to serve on a supply ship, kind of an auxiliary aircraft carrier that they used back in those days to ferry planes back and forth from the main aircraft carrier. And he was an ensign and worked in the mess. And that boat, that support boat, was struck by the Japanese, and he was killed. Now, why is this important? That the Navy is planning to, in quotes, name this $20 billion nuclear aircraft carrier after in tribute to the bravery and the service of an African American serviceman. There have been throughout history boats named for African American men, all uh, uh, Hispanic, Latin American men, and Asian American men. I don't recall that any boats were named for women, but I'm going to probably miss on that. There's probably one or two over the years, but I can't. It's not in my instant recall, and I'm just kind of you know uh, fanboy boat spitballing here. So no no notes, just a somewhat a suspect piece of gray matter in the upper decks. So um, the what I fear, because oftentimes when I say what I fear when it comes to the Trump administration, it invariably comes true because they're doing so much shady shit all the time, every single day, that if you fear something today, you might go to bed and like, oh, well, that didn't happen. but tomorrow's another day. And they are, doing silly, corrupt, corrosive, illegal, and racist things every single day. That's those are the people that were elected to represent you and spend your money in Washington. That shit happens every freaking day, right? And so, Mr. Miller, I'll say Ensign Miller, but Mr. Miller was a hero of Pearl Harbor, and subsequently killed in duty, in active duty. And they named this ship after him. That the naming of this, the fourth of the series of four Gerald R. Ford aircraft carriers to date, that was done in the last year of the Trump administration. So maybe because he did it, will it stand? I'm just because of the inglorious stripping of honors and titles and achievements of black and brown people by the Trump administration 2.0 is just completely off the proverbial chain. I just I fear I'm going to be sorely disappointed, and you know that's one cracker sitting here in northern Massachusetts. So I know that the disappointment will be felt by many people, and if it happens during Black History Month, which these, the this is a highly technical term, but the MF factor of the Trump administration is very profound. You know, they are MF they got down, right? They do that very well. I'm that they'll, oh, that's the one that he decides because he's taking so much heat about the Kennedy Center, which he had to close down because nobody would come and play at it. So he just announced that he's closing the Kennedy Center for 2 years for quote unquote renovations. That this massive, the biggest aircraft carrier ever made in world history until the Chinese, take a shot at the world title. He'll decide that that's the one that's going to be the Donald J. Trump aircraft carrier. I feel it coming. If I'm wrong, then everybody of goodwill wins. But he has disappointed us so much before, and I know that he'll do it again. So we have those. So the four after we'll have the four by 32 or 34. We'll have all four up and running. The As we talked about in a much earlier episode, as far as the dry dock area and production capacity, the Chinese they're not up to where we are. We had 6,000 boats during the Second World War in the U.S. Navy. A lot support ships, PTs, small, but for thousands of boats. Now, the U.S. Navy is comprised of boats that that float. I think is probably around, let's say, 600, and that might be a little bit much. It's a different game. We're not at war yet. Um, could be by the time we end this visit, then we could have bombed Iran a second time. And Israel is our ally, and we have a shared interest in keeping Iran from developing nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. But it's just it's a worrying dynamic that when you look at Israel, it has the profound corruption of the Netanyahu regime, his attacks on the judiciary, his I'm not going to tell you the number because I'll get it wrong, and I will I will disgrace a family in Israel who was waiting for the return of a hostage. But there were dozens of hostages held by the terrorists in Hamas, right? Dozens that would have come home alive and not in body bags to their families in Israel if Netanyahu had not extended the conflict for political purposes. He's not alone in the world for behaving like that. Donald J. Trump, you will recall, did many things and will continue to do them again to distract from his corrupt and criminal activity, whether it's Epstein or otherwise. This is, a game that these rich white men play. And they aren't the one, their sons and daughters are not the ones that suffer the consequences, of course. It is generally the people in the military. Israel is different because it's, you're born in Israel, you're in, unless you are, uh, that issue of whether the ultra orthodox should be required to serve in the military. That's something that's on the table for the new election that's coming later this year. So that'll shake out as it does. Of course, they should have to serve. If their neighbor has to serve, and that's the way that the law goes, then that's the way it should be. So there's a shared, a reasonable concern and a shared interest in reducing the risk of Iran obtaining or developing a nuclear weapon. But at what cost? Because the last time we were there, we did that. We flew over and dropped bunker busters after the brilliant Israeli Air Force and assets on the ground softened the target to the point of a my pillow. You know, they nobody can point at the Israeli Air Force or the Mossad and say that they are anything less than world class operators in every possible way. You know, it's their president. It's when I uh, listen to people, or if I ever have a disagreement with people about let's see, are you, in the Mamdani factor, are you anti-Zionist? If you're anti-Zionist, are you anti-Semitic? And I will always argue that I can hate strong. I can I can say without any hesitation that Netanyahu, that's hard when it's cold out. That word is really hard when it's cold out. Benjamin Netanyahu is he is harming the state of Israel, even as he presided over that attack with the Americans on the Iranian nuclear capacity. To what degree was their capacity diminished by the strike with the bunker busters that didn't bust the bunkers completely? Um, and the contention, supposition, or blather about the fissionable material being smuggled out of Fordo to some secret undisclosed location where it can be reconstituted into a bomb. We don't know that. Well, I don't. Perhaps you don't. The Mossad knows much more than we do about it. And it will be unknowable for some period of time. It'll all come out. It's the way the world works. So we're over there now. We're racked, stacked, and loaded. We allowed. We'll also find this out in more detail. gory detail, how many protesters died after Donald Trump said, "I got your back." That's a fair question. He said, "I warned the mullahs not to kill them, and if there is any more violence against protesters," I don't know the exact language he used, but he implied or said or insinuated that there would be some sort of military intervention if protesters were killed. Now, is there a paradox at play here with, American jackbooted stormtroopers killing American protesters? Why aren't we protecting our American citizens against our own government? And our government is spending billions in foreign wars that Donald Trump that said he was going to get out of. Perfectly fair. That was one of the planks of his platform. No more foreign wars. Donald J. Trump, take my word to the bank. So yeah, uh, we have a beautiful navy. Sounds like Trump. Big beautiful navy. I can't do his voice. I don't want to. I don't want that stink on me. We have a formidable naval force. The Chinese are catching up leaps and bounds as they are in AI and every other contest, every other sense. And my fear with the fooling around, the FAFO, the grievances, the personal vendettas against those that Trump thinks wronged him, Comey, Letitia James, and Ms. Lisa Cook, and Jerome Powell, all of the energy and bandwidth and money that it takes to harass those that are perceived enemies of Donald J. Trump to satisfy a grievance, all of that energy could be directed at training Americans to more fully embrace AI and other new technologies as American jobs are going to be under pressure. How about that? How about a few $1 billion at a national program online to retrain American workers? I mean, we can do in person in our wonderful community college system. We can retrain people there. We can try to redirect people in certain trades that will be less in demand towards ones that are now more in demand, and we can bring them in and 2 weeks of seminars and make their lives more productive. Let them earn all of the things we're not doing because your boy is on these flights of fancy against the perceived enemies because he's angry, because his feelings are hurt. Come on. Can't can't are do you have no decency? Can you not feel the pain that Donald Trump must have felt his entire life as the child of privilege coming up in New York? Anytime he needs to go to the ATM, he just runs another casino through the Chapter 11 and takes out some spending money. Have you no decency, sir? Can you not empathize with what it must be like to be Donald J. Trump, to go through the school of hard knocks? You know, yeah, his dad didn't love him. I understand that. Mine did, and I'm eternally grateful. And I wish he was not 10 years in on to greater places that they don't wear red hats. Um, so everybody learns to live with disappointment, and Donald has to do that too. It may be too late at 79 3/4. But we're paying the effing price every day. We're paying the price for the perceived slights, the grievances, the what he considers indignity, if he says indignity. If he understands what that means, I don't know. Uh, that's costing all of us, all American citizens, in violent attacks against us, the tariff program that costs us more at the grocery store, the not retraining people when the economy is going through the most consequential transition since since the post Civil War era, the impact on immigration, all other things that need help, need work. Pamela Joe Bondi is not focused on supporting and protecting rule of law because she's running around doing his judicial hit list, right? Todd Blanche, her number two, running around explaining why. The statement the other day is that I don't think that these Epstein victims are going to get what they're looking for. I don't think they're going to find satisfaction. Well, how about this? If the DOJ kept their word and did what they said they were going to do and behaved responsibly, then the co-conspirators would have been named, shamed, and if appropriate, according to the statute of limitations, charges could be brought. But that's not going to happen under Trump. He's not going to charge wealthy people with crimes. Now, can it be handled? Can any of it be handled on a state to state basis? Perhaps. The like we mentioned in earlier episodes, state of Florida, Florida law, as I understand it, sitting here today, does not have a statute of limitations on the state crime of human trafficking. Can you make out a case decades later, witnesses dead or otherwise indisposed? Can you make uh, a case that's going to stick? That is not easy. It's not easy in year one. In year 29 or 18 and a half, it's really hard. So I hope they try. And by virtue of trying, if it's a borderline case, you get them to plead to a lesser offense, you get restitution for the victims, and you get more details made a part of the public record, and we can move on. You know, the whole thing about people, anybody, well, anybody that that talks about TDS after Minneapolis, after this year, needs really serious professional help. You know, you're not only a bad person to your fellow Americans, but you're probably a danger to yourself. So put TDS, waste, fraud, and abuse, and she was a DEI hire, and put that in your your diaper caddy next to your bed, and just let it cook. You know, because when you say it, people of goodwill hear that and they know that you're and there's nothing illegal about being a freaking dope, right? It used to be a free country for dopes and others alike. But just don't try not to be an asshole. That would be my my official position on that. So anyway, it's It's starting to get a little chilly. I don't have my full winter coat, and it's temperatures dropping, and I'm so I'll take that as an excuse and just wish you a beautiful evening. Thank you very much. Any of that subscribing, telling a friend, sharing with your group if you're a new subscriber, and you can restack amongst your network. That would be fantastic. It would help me do a little bit more of this little bit that I'm doing. It would be greatly appreciated. And we will. Well, I'm going to go in and well, of course, as always, walk the handsome four-legged assassin because it's getting close to his dinner time. And then I'm gonna, well, while I'm doing that, I'm gonna be listening to updates for to see what's happening in Iran and have if any harm has come in the interim to the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Battle Group, or more likely to uh, Iran and drones, harm coming to their side. But it's still there are sailors and seamen on those massive vessels, and one random drone, even one that is that does goes astray from its intended target, can kill a few Americans, and it's a dangerous situation. So, are we there for the right reasons? Is there, do you trust? I'm going to say no before I ask the question. Do you trust the administration to have a strategy that will minimize loss of human life in execution of whatever strategy they are going in there with? No. Hegseth and Trump, no, I don't. And that's my prerogative. But I do not trust that one little bit. We have, as we saw saw in Venezuela with the Green Berets, we have marvelously talented special forces that do miraculous things and are braver than brave beyond measure. So salute to them. May they all come home to their families safely, and wishing the same thing for the Iranians that are not part of uh, the IRGC, right? Um, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, right? They're verifiable bad guys, and we could kill a whole bunch of them, and that would not be the worst thing for history or for Israel's long-term safety, to because those are the guys that support and deliver the money and the munitions to Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad of, yeah, all of those things. Um, all of those groups and feeder groups and other terrorists that were that CZ sent managed the transfers of their money. Um, they're still there. They're all diminished, whether by beeper or otherwise. They've been chopped down to size. But as far as extremism goes, there will always be more. Israel alone, their behavior towards the poor, starving, and injured in Gaza is a crucible to develop more and more extremism. That's indisputable, I think. It's all a matter of degrees. It's no excuse for the October 23 atrocities at all, but it's it's an ongoing BB net cold out here. BB PM Israel BB. It is he is playing a game too. If perhaps it would have been a better idea if the state of Israel had considered a deal where BB retires and they give him some sort of relief because he doesn't have the same immunity that Donald J. Trump has. Shouldn't have. It should be some sort of qualified down the middle. I understand the reason for some level of immunity for an American president and perhaps for an Israeli PM, but not what the embarrassment of SCOTUS, John Roberts. And how about your boy Clarence showing up in the Epstein files? Yeah. Congratulations to Clarence, to his wife Ginny, uh, to their friends down the street, the Alitos, and the upside down um, uh, call to glory, or whatever it is, hail to glory flag. Um, those types of people. Congratulations to all of them. I hope they sleep well. And wishing you all a beautiful day. And we'll catch up with you sometime tomorrow. Thank you very much. Kindly subscribe, restack, tell a friend, phone a friend. Phone Regis. Regis isn't available. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.